reptilian shapeshifters are behind ISIS, the Federal Reserve and Sesame Street. This is the False Flag Nation podcast, with your hosts, Prometheus and William Revere.
William Revere here, checking in.
This is Prometheus. What's going on, people?
Okay, good. We are from remote locations. We are not in the same building today. We like to keep separate in case of attacks, NSA interfering with our broadcasts. Yes. We like to scramble the transmissions, if you will. So
yes, if they're following the IP address right now, we 1 minute we're in Pakistan, the next we're in Siberia, the next we're in Chad. They have no idea.
What up, Nissa? You don't know what the fuck's going on. Exactly. It comes to that. We got to do what we got to do.
Did you? Speaking of which, did you see Edward Snowden started a Twitter?
Yes, I did.
He's been trolling the NSA. He started following them.
Yes, I think that's funny though.
That's.
I can't believe it. I can't believe that he's actually doing his thing over there in Russia. Another reason to like Russia, I guess.
Yeah, that's a big part of what we're going to be talking about is the Russian intervention in Syria today. That's our main topic. And when you start delving into the facts, it's really difficult to buy this traditional Cold War throwback axis of evil shit the Western media is throwing at us. It's in its own, bass-ackwards sort of way. Russia kind of seems like the good guys in this situation. But
there have been. I don't think the media has been totally anti-Russia. I've seen at the Washington Post and the New York Post, they had a lot of comics making fun of Obama, calling him, this weak individual that Putin is clearly bullying around, which is pretty true, I would say. But I think Putin has real reasons for what he's doing, and I think the next few months we're going to see what he has in store. I think we wanted to definitely hit the refugee topic, which is really hot right now.
Yeah, it's definitely intertwined with what's going on in Syria as well.
Yes. So why don't we dive right into that? Why don't you give us a little background information? I know in the news media, like I said, there's been a lot of info and a lot of hot trending topics about this Russia interfering in U.S. Involvement over in Syria, and it's kind of like a battle of these superpowers, the U.S. and Russia. What do we know about that, and is this the next step in the new Cold War?
Well, some people are calling it that, and there's definitely kind of this Cold War mentality that's kind of hung on in the Western media. If you look at the coverage of what Russia's been doing, and I'll start from the beginning with a little more background in a second. But if you look at the coverage going on right now, if you just type in like Russia, war in Syria in Google, it's all this snide, like one-sided, say Russia's going to get caught in a quagmire type commentary from Washington Post and mainstream outlets in Western media. They're just like the George Will, like that neocon fuckhead who's on Fox. Yeah, what's that show? The main show they have at 6 p.m. like Fox News Report with Brett Baer, whatever.
Yes, the Grapevine or whatever the hell.
Yeah, the George Wills, the Charles Krautheimers of the world. They're all we cannot allow this Russian interference here. They always have an ulterior motive. What about your ulterior motives, asshole?
Yeah.
What about going into Iraq on false pretenses and overthrowing a legitimate government? However bad Saddam Hussein was, I'm not defending him. He's a piece of shit, but that doesn't mean that war should have been launched. And it doesn't mean this covert action against Syria should have been taken. I don't think Assad is a great guy, but
it's definitely true. And Egypt as well is another one of those examples.
Yeah, they got caught into
Mubarak.
Yeah, as part of this whole Arab Spring. They were an ally of the U.S. for a long time, and the U.S. Decided that he had outlived his usefulness and allowed him to get overthrown. But let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't you give us a little intro? I mean, very quickly, is this another Iraq in 2000 where Iraq decided to start trading their oil and purchasing oil and selling oil in euros instead of dollars, and then wham, September 11th, and we're invading them? Is this something similar to that or no?
Well, let's start from the beginning with the Arab Spring. I mean, that's by that point, the Iraq War is kind of winding down.
This is 2010.
This is 2000 to late 2010, December 2010, and you have the Tunisian Revolution, which a lot of these revolutions, that was the first one, and then it started copycat revolutions. And they were legitimate protests against the government because they've been ruled by these autocratic secular, and that's important, secular dictators for decades. Like Muammar Gaddafi in Libya was in power for 40 years. Hosni Mubarak in Egypt for 30 years. These people have been in power for a long time, and then when they die, one of their sons takes over.
Right.
That's what was going to happen that's what happened in Syria. Bashar al-Assad, his father, was the first dictator. In Baghdad, Uday or Qusay Hussein would have taken over for Saddam had he died of natural causes. But the Arab Spring started as a legitimate revolt against the government because, as I said, these are not nice people. I'm not trying to defend them that much, these Arab dictators, but
they did have a sense of control over the government.
Yes, they provided stability to that part of the world. They were old school secular Arab nationalists, and they kept those countries in line, and they were ruthless in doing so.
And their people were, for the most part, fed. They had working electricity and water.
Yeah. Now, the average person in Libya or in Syria too, before this war started, probably would have liked to have a little more personal freedom. Probably thought the government was a little too harsh. But yeah, at the same time, like you said, their needs were met. They had fucking running water. They had electricity. They had a functional country and a society there. If you look at photos of Damascus or what's the capital, Tripoli of Libya before these wars started, you'd think you were looking at like a small or medium-sized American city. If you look at the skyline, you got like fairly tall buildings, lights and everything, and there's parks that people are out in. It's a little oppressive, but it's not horrible. You're not living under Genghis Khan or something like that. But once the Arab Spring started, it seems like it kind of got hijacked by foreign powers that saw this as an opportunity to impose their will on states which had resisted the New World Order, if you will. We have a country like Libya, which much like Syria, did not have a central bank which was connected to the Rothschild family. In America we have the Federal Reserve System. In the UK they have the Bank of England, and almost every country in the world, except the so-called axis of evil countries, and again, not defending them, a lot of them are evil, the people that run them, like Saddam and Kim Jong-il, but again, isn't it a coincidence that all these countries in the axis of evil are countries that don't have Rothschild-owned central banks? Like, what are the odds?
Yeah, and those countries, like you mentioned, they've been treated extremely harsh over the past few years. Sanctions, military sanctions, isolation. Maybe North Korea doesn't want to be this isolated little country. Maybe we're just being told that, and there's such crippling sanctions on them they can't do anything. And the same with Cuba.
It's possible because you really can't go to those countries. I mean, I do know someone that went to North Korea, and it does sound like it is very oppressive there.
Yeah.
But, who knows what those countries would be like if these sanctions were not in place. I watched the first episode of the Empire Files, that new show, what's her name, Abby Martin put out. She was on Joe Rogan's show recently, and she used to be a reporter for RT. And they were talking about the effects of these sanctions they had on Iraq prior to the invasion. This is like during the 90s, mind you.
Right.
And they said it just completely crippled the economy. There were like babies dying because there were baby food shortages and all this stuff happening because they were cut off from trade with the rest of the world.
Kind of similar to Palestine right now.
Sure, yeah, similar to that.
Example.
And again, it's isn't it interesting that these countries that resist having a central bank or resist taking out loans from the IMF and going into debt servitude to them end up getting invaded or demonized or ostracized in the Western media.
Right.
And
now,
the Rothschild family, all these central banks are in one way linked to an entity called the Bank for International Settlements. And this is
the
like
World Bank.
The World Bank is a separate organization, but this is the organization that decides how much money in a given country is worth. They play a great role in that. And these are basically the grand puppet masters pulling the string of the world economy. Nothing happens unless they want it to, so long as you're within that system. And if you resist that system, you represent something that they can't control. So that's all these countries that are resisting them, the Cubas, the Syrias, the Libyas, maybe not the nicest places in the world to be, but how much of that is due to their own oppressiveness and backwardness versus sanctions and ostracization being imposed on them by entities like the IMF or NATO or the bank, BIS, Bank for International Settlements. It's tough to say.
So let me ask you this. You've got a country like Russia, a superpower, a world superpower. You've got a country like China.
Yeah.
They are heavily involved in not only the Middle East, but in developing African nations as well.
Yeah.
What are they trying to do? Are they New World Order affiliated, and are they the last resistance to the New World Order? And are they trying to hold on to whatever part of the world is not corrupted yet? Like, I'm trying to see what their angle is.
This is what kind of ties it all together here. These countries like Russia and China and these Arab countries that that so far have not taken out loans from the IMF or of central banks, they are outside of the Bilderberg Trilateral Commission sphere of control. So these people, like the New World Order, they are powerful. They're very powerful, but they don't control everything. And
Right.
These countries like Syria, they can push around by funding groups like ISIS or Al-Jibhat al-Nusra, whatever I don't know the exact pronunciation, which is basically the Syrian version of Al-Qaeda.
Right.
These are these so-called rebels that the CIA is funding.
Right. I was just about to say, which
Yeah.
we are funding, Israel is funding.
Yeah. See, the thing is, you just mentioned Russia and China. Those countries are, yeah, they have their own ulterior motives for sure. They're jockeying for position. They see the U.S. as having lost a lot of steam following the Afghan and Iraq wars, and they're becoming more assertive. They want to assert themselves in their own geographic spheres, which is, from a realpolitik perspective, is not that surprising. The thing is, those countries, they're too big to push around the way Syria is. Like Russia has nuclear weapons. They are the former Soviet Union. They were the dominant country within the Soviet Union. They're simply too big to just be bullied and pushed around by the the globalist bankers.
I certainly think that China is in that position too.
Yeah, well, the Chinese are trying to play the same game, but they're fueled by nationalism, Chinese nationalism, and nationalism is the other side of this whole thing, which I'm going to get into later. The global elite bankers in the West hate nationalism, and they're trying to erase it.
Right, because they're pushing for this borderless one world government, one world religion.
Yes, that is the desired end state. Yes, they're pushing for this utopian Brave New World type society where there's a one world government. There's no sense of national identity, where borders are meaningless, and they think they can. It's one of those things from a utopian point of view. It sounds good because you would theoretically eliminate war, but this is the stepping stone for drastically reducing the U.S. the world population and all that. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here.
Right.
The main reason this stuff with Syria has gone on is because, like we said, they refuse to take part of the economic system that has been imposed on them. Another thing is they don't allow the genetically modified foods into their economy. And for some reason, I'm still not entirely clear why they feel so zealous about this. This is something that the United States government seems very protective of and insistent on imposing this. I mean, even countries that normally cooperate with them, like France and European governments, don't want GMO food there.
Right.
But for some reason, the U.S. is very zealously pushing this, even though a lot of people here in America, like ourselves included, do not like it.
Well, there's a tie between Monsanto and the U.S. government,
yeah,
for sure. There's a revolving door of board members of Monsanto and the federal government. So you just got to follow the money. I'm sure that's where it all ends.
Absolutely, yeah. The lobbyists are paying them well to do that. But these little countries that, unlike Russia, can be pushed around, they decide to, if you're not going to play ball, they give you a series of ultimatums. If you're not going to play ball, we're just going to get rid of you. And that's what they did with Gaddafi by providing the air support to these rebels. And you remember, back in 2011, the media was portraying these rebels in Libya as the good guys.
Exactly.
And you remember, Gaddafi was winning. He was he had them cornered in Benghazi, and NATO gave air support to them, and everyone was cheering, like, yay! We freed Libya from this evil dictator. And what did those rebels do? They stormed the U.S. embassy and killed the ambassador there. And that's where the whole Benghazi Gate scandal comes from, with Hillary Clinton's emails right now.
Which is a bunch of nonsense to begin with. So
yeah.
We should do a show on that.
Then we're going to have to at some point. But these rebels that were portrayed in the media as the good guys, they turned into the Muslim Brotherhood. And now ISIS has a large presence within Libya as well. So there's multiple different Islamic factions that are fighting for control of Syria, and it's absolute chaos. And that's what's a lot of ways has contributed to this refugee crisis that we talked about a few podcasts ago. And that same thing is happening in Libya, except Assad put up a better fight. And he was holding them back. He was winning.
So let me put this simply, and let me see what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
So now we're stuck in a situation where there's essentially CIA and U.S. backed rebels, which have turned into ISIS, at least in some respects, versus the Assad regime and the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So you have the Soviet Union, which is a powerful military force.
You mean Russia?
Right, Russia. backing Assad now. So really, it's
kind of
a proxy war, I guess.
Yeah. Well, let me get into that a bit. Basically, what's going on is the Western countries, and by that I mean the Washington and their client states in Europe, they want Assad gone for all the reasons we've discussed. They won't play ball. They won't take orders from the global economic system. So it is my opinion, created these insurgencies. The so-called Free Syrian Army, which is really just Al-Qaeda rebranded.
With U.S. funding.
Yeah, enemy of my enemy is my friend type shit. Exactly what they did funding the Taliban against the Soviets in the 80s.
Exactly.
And it is my opinion, that's what they openly admit to. That's what they openly admit to. But it's my opinion that ISIS is in some way connected to the CIA as well. Because this guy, Anwar al-Baghdadi, I might be getting his name wrong, the leader of ISIS, was held in a U.S. prison in Iraq during the war, was released under dubious circumstances and mysteriously escaped, and emerges as this the so-called Caliph of the Islamic State a few years later. And they suddenly just overnight managed to recruit 10,000 people and take over a large part of Syria and Iraq now. And their goal is to take over all of Syria and Iraq. And, isn't it convenient how Syria's goals align with NATO's goals of getting rid of Assad in Damascus? And they were winning. They were beginning to win. Assad was beginning. He couldn't hold off this joint assault of these, Al-Qaeda rebels being funded by the U.S. and ISIS at the same time. And that's when Russia intervened. Russia has a relationship with Syria going back to the 60s, I think. And suddenly this has thrown a wrench in the wheels of the whole thing. Because Russia has begun bombing ISIS positions as well as all the rebel positions. And in their minds, that's a false distinction. They're like, Assad is the legitimate government. Assad's government is the only legitimate political entity in Syria, and we're helping them retake control of their country. And we're not going to distinguish between these rebels and ISIS. And they've launched, I think, a couple hundred airstrikes just in the last 2 weeks. And they've done more damage in 2 weeks to ISIS than the United States has in about 13 months of airstrikes. So now the whole world sees. What that tells me is that the whole world now sees that this whole thing is just a publicity stunt. All these drone strikes against ISIS over the last year have been a really half-hearted attempt to restore order to Syria. They're more concerned. What the actions are telling us is that Washington cares more about getting rid of Assad than they do about defeating ISIS. And we're seeing now ISIS has apparently fallen into complete disarray because of these strikes. That if the U.S. was really serious about getting rid of ISIS, they could have done it already, but they've been holding back. And the question is why. And we see that if you just connect the dots and see which party's interests aligned here, all the signs seem to point to the CIA funded ISIS, and they don't want to destroy their own assets on the ground because they're more concerned, again, about getting rid of Assad than.
So basically, the U.S. is going to pretend like they're attacking ISIS while funding ISIS and hoping that they're able to overthrow the Assad government.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, that's the
and
crux
Russia,
of my
like you
argument.
said.
And then Russia came in and fucked everything up because the America they've put Obama into a really awkward position because America has no appetite for war anymore. They took a poll now; it'd be overwhelmingly against sending troops to Syria. Obama has been sidelined by Putin, and he's basically resigned to finger wagging, just saying you got to stop doing this. Let me be clear. There
needs to be an international effort.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Like there is one. That's the thing. And that there was an article in Huffington Post about this that just came out today about what Russia is doing exactly. It's by Alistair Crook. He's a former MI6 agent, and they're Britain's version of the CIA. And this is a rare example of balanced journalism in like non-propaganda about what's going on in the Middle East in Western media. The editor must have fallen asleep when he submitted this article or something.
Right. There must have.
Says,
how did it pass through the
Zionist
board?
censors there? Yeah. Israel's aim in Syria is to, or excuse me, Russia's aim in Syria is to strategically defeat ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Straight to the point, no bullshit article. And he says the real reason all these snide articles are coming out and the Krauthammers of the world are just incensed at this whole thing is that for the past, basically 20 years, 25 years, NATO has basically made all decisions about war and peace in the world. They acted and the rest of the world reacted. They were the only actor on the world stage. And now you have an outside party, Russia, who doesn't give a fuck what their agenda is, and they had the audacity to take action as well. And they're just incensed that this could happen. And now other countries are going to start getting uppity and thinking they can do that too. And you're seeing this alliance form, challenging the NATO globalist fractional reserve banking cartel power strategy. You have this alliance forming between Russia, Syria, Iran, which Iran is the one allowing Russia to fly through their airspace. And I think Iraq is going to end up joining them too, because Iraq, I think they're holding a vote in their parliament about whether to ask Russia for airstrikes within their territory as well. And it seems like that's going to pass. And Russia has already said, like, we'll help Iraq with air support if they ask for it.
Wow, I wonder what that'll mean for the U.S. Will there be more boots on the ground in Iraq if that happens?
I don't think so. It really seems like Obama has been cock-blocked with this one. It just doesn't. There's no appetite to send troops back to war. The bottom line is the military industrial banker elites in the West have been effectively checkmated here. Maybe checkmated is too premature to say, but they've definitely been painted into a corner. Because now, ISIS is losing. Now these other extremist groups, these who are committing a lot of the atrocities there, using weapons they're receiving from the CIA, they're being routed right now, and the Middle East is beginning to see who gets results over there and who doesn't.
So, do you think that there will be a defining moment where there's a clear and decisive connection found between ISIS and the CIA? And will there be some sort of cover-up? What's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 months? Because I feel like this is going to be crucial. Before the end of 2015, there's going to be a lot of events that are going to occur, and we haven't seen Russia really flex its muscles like this before. So what do you think is going to happen in the future?
I think that if it comes out somehow that ISIS is in fact a creation of CIA, Mossad, or Western intelligence services, that it is going to be a complete shit hits the fan scenario, at least diplomatically. Like the U.S. will never really hold the moral high ground again if this happens, because the entire world is so appalled by ISIS, and if it comes out that they are in fact a puppet organization of the CIA, like all hell is going to break loose, and
it'll be spun into something else, just like the connection. I mean, there's a known connection between Osama bin Laden and the CIA, and even that isn't discussed at a national level every day like it fucking should.
Well, it's not discussed every day. They admit it. They do damage control, and they admit, yes, well, we made some mistakes. We are indirectly responsible for this. So they could take that route as well. But it just seems like they've bitten off so much more than they can chew this time that they're going to end up fucking themselves. And when this is all over, Russia is going to end up looking like the good guys. Assad is going to remain in power, and Iraq and Iran will both be allied with Russia. There's going to be this sort of Eurasian alliance formed there, and this would basically be the end of U.S. credibility in the Middle East for the foreseeable future.
And that's going to put a lot of pressure on, obviously, Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. These Gulf Arab states, these Wahhabist, fundamentalist, Sunni countries, they're involved in this too. Like they're part of the this cabal against Syria as well, because they want to create like a radical Islamist regime in Syria as well. That's just like them, because these Gulf states are funneling money to ISIS. That's been proven. Like that's like fairly common knowledge. And yet, isn't it interesting how the United States, Israel, no one ever calls them to task over this? No, all we hear is they're our most loyal allies in the Middle East, and we need to stand by them.
Right. And we didn't really discuss it much, but isn't there, or I know that there has been construction of some major pipelines for natural gas, and obviously crude oil production is huge in Syria. So that's going to be another key country to control for either one of these superpowers, be it the U.S. or Russia. So is that another reason why there's such a effort to kind of control that area?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Like there is a rival pipeline in Syria, or they had plans to build a rival gas pipeline, and that would rival this other pipeline that is controlled by NATO countries, and I think it's called the BTC pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And that would economically undermine the influence they have on the energy supply to the surrounding countries. So obviously they want to take that out as well. And that's, Turkey's heavily invested in that as well. And, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but Turkey is a major contributor to what's going on as well, because they're the ones allowing the ISIS fighters from Europe to pass through. Like they could secure their border. They could do it. They just let these people walk over the border. Turkey's a NATO member. Do you think that's why? If they were really serious about stopping ISIS, they wouldn't call them to task about that? They'd be like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Stop these people. They don't do it.
Right, because they're supporting it clearly.
Yeah.
By not closing their borders and openly letting people through, they're in effect supporting and directly ISIS.
Yeah.
So they're clearly in on the conspiracy.
Yeah. And that's you see them kind of wringing their hands and stamping their feet now, like Prime Minister Erdogan, whatever, I think that's his name. He's always like, "You invaded our airspace." The Russians. I'm like, they're just like, no, we didn't. And there was some fake story going around that they shot down a Russian jet, and then the Russians are like, "This didn't happen. You're making things up." But it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. I will say now, I don't see this escalating into a direct confrontation with Russia in the United States. Nobody wants that. Russia doesn't want that. The United States doesn't want that. I know.
Yeah, that would be counterproductive on both ends.
I know. You have a lot of chest puffing from Republican candidates like Mark Rubio, just saying, "Oh, I would risk war with Russia to enforce a no-fly zone to protect our Al Qaeda terrorists we're funding down there." I'm like, go fuck yourself, Marco.
And you've got the bloodthirsty John McCain who's down there saying that didn't he say that they should have boots on the ground and should be killing Russian soldiers.
Yeah, he had a few senior moments this past week. He was
were they senior or were they just the truth? That's
yeah. Well, that's the thing. He let the truth slip, which no politician of sound mind would do. He's like, "Oh, we should be funding them like we did our Al Qaeda and the Taliban against the Soviets." And then I'm sure his handlers were like, John, stop it. Shh.
He just needs him and Charles Krauthammer should just be wheeled off into some retirement home, and
I think they should just be sent to a retirement home in his lovely home state of Arizona, off in the desert, and they can just strap him to a wheelchair and just like, "Hey, if you need applesauce, John, just ring the bell. There, I'm going to put on the Andy Griffith Show for you."
Well, I believe he drinks blood. So,
well, yeah, that's true. He does. He does feast on newborn babes at Bohemian Grove, and
he was there for the sacrifice to the giants that are in the basement of the Vatican as well.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
A key witness that I can't give his name, but he was there, and he actually was able to escape, and he saw a multitude of NFL stars, Hollywood elites, presidential candidates. John McCain was one of them, and apparently he partook in the sacrifices.
Yeah, that's actually why Pope Francis was here a couple of weeks ago. He was making arrangements for the next Global Elite Gala in the Vatican basement there.
He had to secure another deal with the Canadian Catholic Charities organizations. There's a couple Native American reservations in Canada, which that's their apparently the Vatican really.
I know where you're going with this.
They really developed a taste for Native American flesh, so
yeah.
They directly import Native American children and bring them over to the Vatican.
They spotted on that Indian reservation with the Lucifer telescope. They saw the signs in the sky that Marduk's return was imminent, and he will be landing, interestingly, in Babylon, which is in modern day Iraq. So they have to get everything prepared in time for his return. That's why they want to get rid of Assad and make sure Iraq is safe too. They got to make sure that you got a clean place to hold their ceremony there.
See, but once again, we've come full circle.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to Zionist, flesh-eating, Nibiru-dwelling, reptilian shapeshifters from the center of the earth controlling the world.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they journeyed here from Orion's belt in ages past, and they left their Zionist agents here to be caretakers and stewards of the human cattle until their return. And hopefully it doesn't happen in our lifetimes.
I hope.
Unless Pope Francis conjures them sooner.
I'm laughing because I don't know what else to do. There's so much truth hitting me at once.
Yeah.
I can't really.
Yeah. But there you go, folks. That's that in a can. Here in 40 minutes. I'm here 40 minutes. We've hit you with so much truth. You're going to need to go and lay down for a bit and try to process it all. This is what's really going on in Syria. It's what we do here. We try to expose the bullshit, cut through the lies.
I think we did a pretty damn good job of that today.
I think we did as well. So, guys, don't forget to like us on Facebook, share this post. We are on Twitter now. We just set that up today. It's at False Flag Nation on Twitter. So we'll be sharing the posts from now on and other articles and sources we think are interesting. So you'll see where we get all these dangerous dissident ideas from, and you can corrupt your friends' minds as well. But once again, don't forget to follow us there on Facebook. For more updates, go to falseflagnation.com. I do have an article up on Return of Kings that was just published. Has nothing to do with this at all. Just called How America is Turning into a Real-Life Sci-Fi Dystopia. I just thought I'd pimp that real quick. It's got started quite a lively discussion in the comments there. It's got a couple 1,000 views so far. A couple tens of thousands of views, actually. But
what's that site again? Let everybody know.
That's returnofkings.com. And it should be at the bottom of the home page right now because it was posted a couple days ago. But go ahead and check it out. Otherwise, I think that's all we got this week, folks. Mr. Revere, anything else?
One last comment I will make. I started watching the Daredevil series on Netflix. Fucking awesome.
Okay.
Very good. Very, very good.
Daredevil. I would not have expected. I told you to start.
I didn't expect it either, but it's very well done. It's very entertaining, and it stays true to the 1990s comic, or not the comic, but animated series of Spider-Man, where they brought Daredevil, Punisher. Oh, it's really fucking good. You guys should check it out.
I'll keep that in mind. I'm working on Narcos myself right now, but when I free some time up, I will.
Once again, you have to remember, all these are distractions set in place by the New World Order to keep us off of the true agenda, and to keep us entertained and fat.
True. Don't indulge too much in pop culture. It's a distraction. As long as the people have the NFL streaming porn and Dancing with the Stars, they're obedient. They're soft.
Right.
They'll think it's a good idea to get on the train cars.
You still enjoy those things.
Yes.
But in moderation.
All right, folks, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you later this week.
Adios.